What's up? It's another wealthy day in the neighborhood. Thank you so much for choosing to be my wealthy neighbors. Welcome to the 13th episode of Wealth Talk TV, where we have candid conversations about purpose, adversity, legacy, and wealth. And this episode is no different from the others, but different from the others because we have the co-founder of Wild Diversity, the nonprofit, Mercy. And Mercy just gave a lot of wise information about their own experience with the wealth journey and what were some of the things that they sacrificed and done to make sure that they are operating within their purpose. And it's one thing to know that there is something within you that is calling you to a different place, a different level, a different dimension in your existence. But it's another thing to operate in it and sacrifice for it. And their story, Mercy's story, is more similar to mine's in the aspect of doing whatever it takes to make sure that you're in a position where you're in alignment, but not just being in alignment, but actually putting in the work, putting in the investment time, putting in the energy to make sure that regardless of what comes or what goes, that you actually are able to look in the mirror and be fulfilled and be satisfied with just waking up and doing your part and making sure that your successors and legacy work and that you're uh, building a community and a foundation and relationships with people who are also fulfilling and aligning within their own purpose. So, with that being said, Mercy's gonna come on and tell us their story, and we'll go from there. I hope you enjoy. Awesome! I see you got a new space. It looks good.
Oh my God, yeah. After like being in that tiny little shed, it's nice
You,
to be able to, like walk to another room, you know what I mean?
nice, nice. That tiny house was dope though. You can't deny
It was
that.
fun.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it would be more fun now in the summertime than trying to deal with the Portland winter in the States.
I could feel that. Yeah, that's what's up. So, welcome to, like, this would be like the 13th episode of Wealth Talk TV.
Ooh, that's
So,
a lucky number.
right, right. Right. So, welcome to the Wealth Talk TV. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and just like share your truth and your own personal wealth journey. How you doing?
I am doing pretty good today, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good. Your melanin popping over there. You just what? Wow.
I've been in a lot of sun. Yes, this is when my skin thrives. This is the summer when I can get dark and golden.
Dope, dope. So, again, with Wealth Talk TV is just like candid conversation about your own personal wealth journey, some of the things that you've experienced and seen, and just
Okay.
being in the space where you're being all candid and vulnerable with yourself, as well as kind of like helping out others, because I do think that people sometimes learn better from other people's experiences and kind of like insider information. So feel free to be as open as you want to be.
Okay.
Um, so we're gonna go ahead and start kicking it off. But starting off,
Okay.
go ahead and tell the people your name and your purpose.
My name is Mercy, she, her, and I feel like my purpose in life is, just to support community, support people, and help them kind of, you know, live out their lives in the best way possible. Support them in finding meaning in their life and get away from the doing stuff because we're told to, doing stuff
Right.
because it's the way it's always been, and kind of challenging those narratives for them to live more fully.
Dope, dope. That's amazing. So, I was gonna ask how you feeling fulfilling your purpose, but before that, I do want to know how did you find that to be your purpose?
To me, it's all about what feels good and what feels right. I feel from like a very young age, I've never wanted, the typical uh, job or anything. My parents are Nigerian.
Mm-hmm.
So, as any kid of Nigerian parents can tell you, that your parents come to you and tell you you can be a like doctor, lawyer, engineer, and they're like, "That's it," and they're not playing around. Those are your
Right,
jobs.
those are your options.
And I was like, I want to be a photographer. My mom's like, no. And she gave me a list, even like with jobs within the medical fields. And I was like, so I, I just knew it wouldn't be fulfilling for me. And I have done those jobs. I've already done those jobs that, working at a rad firm and just sitting there behind a desk every day and like, oh, what's the
Crazy.
point? And I'm
Yeah.
going to school for this.
Right.
Like I'm paying thousands of dollars that I don't have to go to school for this to be as miserable as that person there and that person over there. I was like, I don't think so. So it was like learning. Was having this dream of like, my dream as a kid was traveling the world and being like a National Geographic photographer,
Oh
not sitting
no.
behind a desk. And I knew I would hate it. But then, like, after my father passed away when I was like freshman year in college, I was like, well, I guess I'm not being realistic. I need to get realistic with life. So I was going to school doing marketing, but sitting there and knowing like I knew I would hate this existence behind a desk. Here I am hating it. And when I'm in those places, it's hard to be happy. It's hard to wake up excited about what you do. I felt like all I did was just drink.
Oh
I drank
man.
so hard, and I never wanted that Monday to come, you know, and kind of waking up, pushing your head off the pillow, cursing, because you don't want to go do what you gotta do, what you signed up to do. Um, I just feel like I'm one of those personalities where the inside of my body feels like it's just fighting and screaming to do something that actually resonates with me. So, I mean, I feel like a person only gets through that through trial and error.
Yeah.
Like, you never know what you're going to want to do till you experience all the things you don't want to do.
Right. Right.
And I still feel like I have this vision of what my purpose is, but the method of doing it is
Mm-hmm.
still very up in the air. It
Mm-hmm.
could be anything and it can be multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want it to be multiple things. I don't want to wake up every day and do the same old thing over and over again. Like I've been watching Westworld, and they have these robots that kind of do this routine. And whether one of the guests are there, they just do the routine. And when the guest comes and they interact with them, it takes them a little bit out of the routine. And I don't want to find myself feeling like that's my life, just
Right.
waking up doing the same thing over and over again. I think I would die a little inside every day. It would be a miserable life.
Man, like it's funny that you even start out like that because I was just talking to a friend last night, and we were talking about the difference between actually being and existing, and how sometimes we do get in a space where like we have to give ourselves permission to kind of like just reset or start over from where we are, because you end up leaving these prominent jobs or these careers that to anybody else, it's like, wow, you're making a good amount of money, you're safe, you're secure, you have the benefits that you need, but you're unfulfilled, and you're
Mm,
not operating within the purpose or what causes you to just be driving and thrive driven and thriving. So
mm-hmm,
it's funny that you even kick it off like that, because uh many times I'm not really sure, do you think that there is a fear of what one will lose to just operate in that space of existence, as opposed to like just being like, you know what, I'm a just put this on the back burner and fulfill my purpose? Or is it more so like a duty? Which would you say that what was it for you when you went through the process of trying to operate within that existence?
Well, I mean, for a lot of people, it can be anything. I don't think it's a duty for me because I don't feel obligated to anybody but myself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a fear for me.
Mm.
When I had those jobs, what made me, it felt so stagnant. You have this job, it pays well, you have benefits, you got a lease on a place, you got to pay for that lease. To me, those are all things that makes you feel tied down. Um,
Mm.
I grew
Yeah.
up in Texas, Oklahoma, and in my early 20s, I found myself living in Dallas. And I'm like, the city is not really for me. Like, I'm not really this materialistic. I actually don't like taking this much time to get ready to leave the house or anything. Like, this whole existence is not me, but I have this place that I have to pay rent on. And if I cancel the rent, the lease, then it's going to be on my credit. And I have this job, which gives me like benefits, like I have health insurance. I
Right.
don't even go to the doctor that much, but I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Like, instead of these being like really great things, this to me felt like things that were going to keep me tied down to this location. I
Mm.
even like bought a house during that time in my 20s from like bartending,
Mm-hmm.
and I just like, when I was buying the house, I was buying the house because that's what everybody tells you to do. You
Right.
go to college, you have this career, you get married, you have 2.5 kids, a dog, and this is what you do. And,
Right.
and buying a house was a part of that. You're a successful person. And I knew that when I was buying it, I was like, I don't want to feel stuck in the city because
Yeah.
I love to travel. Do I want to live in the suburb of Dallas? And then that's the rest of my life. Like, oh, I've done this and now I'm here.
Right.
So, and I did feel stuck by all of that. And
Mm.
then I lost the house. The beginning of the recession at that time, I lost my job. My lease came up, and then I was just like, I don't have to be here anymore. I
Yeah.
don't, and I just like moved to Hawaii with a little bit of money in the bank,
Right.
a paycheck's worth of money. But I
Yeah.
also like worked two jobs for like a few months to
Mm-hmm.
have enough money to make that transition,
Mm-hmm.
and worked hard to like get a temp gig just so I could just see what else Mercy could bring to this world other than sitting at this desk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was definitely a fear of losing stability. And I've definitely been in many places in my career where I've been self employed and
Yeah.
where I've had that stable paycheck. And it's definitely a hard thing to
Mm-hmm.
be like, I don't need a stable job. Let me just hustle for the rest of my life.
Right.
Hard to make that decision. But then when your days are yours and you get to fill it however you want,
Right.
there's something really beautiful in that.
Yeah, definitely, man. Wow, you already started out with like just a bolt full of energy, so that's great. As of now, because I know that you said that there are some like you still when it comes down to fulfilling your purpose, there's still some trial and errors. But what are you doing, or what are some of the things that you have done and are kind of sort of still consistent with in fulfilling your purpose?
Well, it's definitely hard to say, and especially the way that it was worded. I feel like fulfilling my purpose is more of a journey than a destination.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's gonna be ever like, done. I am here. I'm arrived, and I don't hope it to be. I hope it's always evolving and changing, and and I feel like I'm on that journey. Like, um, I felt I had this nonprofit, Wild Diversity, and we do outdoor adventures and education for the BIPOC and LGBTQ community. And it feels so good to be doing this work, and it feels exciting. And I think that is one of the tests for me
Mm-hmm.
that I'm in alignment with what I should be doing, is just
Mm.
how I feel about the work.
Right, right.
I'm not waking up cursing.
Yeah.
Booze could be in my house and like just be there and not be drunk the next day. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not miserable. Like, I enjoy what I do, and I would do what I do for free because I have. You
Right.
know, when I was starting out, I'm starting a nonprofit. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know this is what I should be doing, and I'll
Right.
figure out the rest as I go, you know. And it felt
Awesome.
good every step of the way. The kind of work you just wake up and you can do to like the sun's going down, you're like, oh, I need to take a break. The kind of work that makes you feel like you're in a flow while you're doing it. I
Right.
mean, that is how you know you're in alignment with what you should be doing, or just doing stuff that resonates with you, not because you have to, you know?
Right, right, right. Definitely. So when it comes to like the establishment of wild diversity, what were some of the adversities that you experienced with getting that up and going?
Um, I think it's just, I don't, you know, m- most of the time people who start a nonprofit have a lot more experience in nonprofit than I did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know. I think that was a good and a bad thing. I wasn't held back by anything. There was no boxes for me to be stuck in because I didn't have that knowledge. And doing a nonprofit, there's just, you know, registering as a with the government as an entity, it can be intimidating, but it's actually a pretty easy process now. It's all online,
Mm-hmm.
and just knowing the direction you want to go. I've seen so many founders and executive directors lose their nonprofits,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because you have to have a board, and the board decides what's going to happen. Um, so I had a lot of fear around losing the nonprofit, of having a vision that's too big and that nobody would want to support, you know, and losing it all, and then, you know, building something, putting your blood, sweat, tears, energies, good times, bad times in it, and losing it.
Right.
Uh, so I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go that direction. And so we were fiscally sponsored when we started, but
Mm-hmm.
that didn't entirely feel right. And being a brown organization, I feel like a lot of people want to jump on board and have that brown organization represent all the work that they're not doing for racial equity and justice. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of interactions with that, and I'm just uh, like I said, I definitely put the cart before the horse, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And I needed the freedom to continue to do that, to keep trying different avenues or taking different directions and feeling like I just have the freedom to just go and not, you know, not have to hear no's,
Right.
not have to ask permission. And that's the place I'm in now, and it feels good. And I feel like I've been able to support my community so much from this place.
Right. Right. So, could you go back and explain the fiscal sponsorship that you received? Like, what exactly does that mean, and what does it look like?
Yeah. So when you're a nonprofit, right, you don't have to pay taxes and stuff, and you can file as your own 501c3, as your own nonprofit. But if you don't have the ability to be a nonprofit, you can have another nonprofit sponsor you.
Mm-hmm.
And they usually sponsor you as a program of their nonprofit, and you get to be under them. So you operate as under somebody else's tax ID number for the purpose of like getting grants mainly. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to do all that work of getting a board and establishing this. Um, but I do think it is almost a trick of the oppressor,
Mm-hmm.
being fiscally sponsored in a lot of ways. I know so many prominent Black-led, BIPOC-led organizations that are fiscally sponsored. The to file for nonprofit status was a big deal. It was like pages and pages of stuff you had to fill out. Nowadays, it's a two-page online document and a $250 fee versus pages and pages and like hundreds more dollars, you know. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was like 600 or something. So the process of being a nonprofit has simplified. So the idea that any BIPOC organization should be under a white led organization who's not doing the racial work seems ridiculous to me. And
Right.
it doesn't support the community. And I think it puts BIPOC-led organizations more in the place where, I think like philanthropy is very interesting because it's not like they want to support Black organizations on racial justice. It's like they want to control the money and who has it. And I
Mm,
feel like being fiscally sponsored felt like it was under that same system where they're never going to allow us to empower ourselves and support our community. They always wanted to be the ones to do it for us. So
mm.
they get all the grants and money and they just give us pennies to
Like
do this
trickle.
little piece. Yeah. But
Yeah.
we don't need a trickle down effect when we could just do it for ourselves. But I think there's ways of gatekeeping and not allowing us to rise up and support our own community from within. And I
Right.
would put fiscal sponsorship under that, especially now since it's completely so easy for anyone to apply for nonprofit status.
Right. Right. Um, no, I kind of want you to explain what BIPOC is.
Oh,
Just because
sure.
I know what it is, but it might be listeners that don't know exactly what BIPOC.
Yeah. And it's a term that we started using a couple of years ago, like when we started our organization. And most people don't know what it is. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't know what POC is. BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So it expands the whole range of people of color, but it makes a specific note to the Black Indigenous communities because their history in the United States has been so full of violence and oppression to a higher degree than other people of color
Mm-hmm.
face. Um, the anti-blackness in this country is huge. The way that indigenous culture has been stripped of their land, identity, religion, culture is huge. And so it's something unique to make a note of that experience, especially within our country. So instead of just saying people of color, like, oh, we need people of color, we need to support people of color, when really there's so much anti-blackness out there that we do need to like call it out and separate ourselves and make sure people are not just saying people of color when they mean Black people,
Mm-hmm.
but they're too afraid to talk directly to that bias that they have internally. So it's just to make a distinction between those different communities.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so great. Like you've given so much thus far. So I'll transition just a little bit. So when it comes down to being able to actually focus on your passion and do what resonates with you, what have been some of the things that you have done to invest in yourself and make sure that you could be in a position where you could focus on wild diversity?
Um, I think probably making the move to focus on wild diversity full time.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to being in a nonprofit, did carpentry and I was my own carpenter and I had clients and stuff like that. But I noticed that my heart wasn't in it as much as it was,
Mm-hmm.
as much as I loved doing carpentry. And then I found myself just wanting to go back to the work of wild diversity. So for me, it was just kind of stop working
Mm-hmm.
and focusing everything on wild diversity. And there wasn't even enough funds to give me a salary. I think I was giving myself a stipend of like $1,500 a month.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, and it was not a lot in making that move. As I had a house and I moved into, like, I built out the shed,
Mm.
lived in it, called it a tiny house, and it wasn't even really ready. I was sleeping on the floor. I
Wow.
was like going to the bathroom in a bucket just to make sure that I could focus on this work.
Right.
And I was fine.
I was gonna say,
I was
well,
more
first
fine
of
than I
all,
should have been.
listen, like you're not the only person that had to experience that.
Yeah,
Like, hey, like
right.
I've done that just to be able to invest into what
Mm,
what resonates, and it's
mm,
uncomfortable. And while you in that space, it's not prime, because you thinking to yourself, why exactly am I here? But the
mm,
other side of that coin is like when you continue to learn through it, and you continue to invest into what gives your soul purpose, it becomes more worth it, and you have a bit of value of that low place while you're building. So I feel you on that one. I've done that and I've seen that.
yeah, it was worth it. It
Yeah.
is definitely worth it. Um, yeah, we did so much good work creating wild diversity. The energy I put in there was worth it, and I felt kind of fine living in there. Like it wasn't comfortable. I think it was interesting to have friends come over,
Right. Right.
and it was the look on their faces that made me think I should do something about my living situation, because it wasn't like fully fixed up, and so I was like, okay, I need to fix up this place a little bit more. Um, and like I mentioned, the winters are hard in there when it's cold and you're by yourself in this room. You
Right.
know, I think the way that depression can set in those times is
Yeah.
hard, and you do evaluate if what you're doing makes sense and
Right.
why you're doing it. And it
Right.
does. Sometimes you forget your direction, and you're just like, my life is hopeless. What am I doing? You start feeling real bad for yourself. Like there's
Right.
plenty of those days too, and plenty of days where I'm like, I don't care. I'm fine. So
Right.
it definitely goes back and forth. Having something that can support your mental health, whether it's a therapist or friends you can talk to, I think is really important,
Mhm.
to help me get through those times as well.
Mhm.
But also just going back to like, why am I doing this is important too. Um, yeah, it was, I feel lucky to have the opportunity to have that place to sleep in
Mhm.
so I could pursue my dream. Some people have lived out of vehicles to make their dreams come true without like a central place. Like I got a place that I didn't get kicked out of, you
Right.
know, and I had people renting it out of my house so I could like continue to pay my bills and stuff.
Right.
So I feel like, as far as like non-traditional situations, I feel lucky that I had that place, because I've I know people have had a lot less,
Right.
you know.
Right. Definitely. That's amazing. And I'm glad that you're the type of person that is willing to basically do whatever it takes just to make sure that you are fulfilling your purpose. Because a lot of times people, when it comes down to being in the space, or should I be, or should I just exist? Should I just do what makes me comfortable enough to be able to say that I have what I need, or be stable, as opposed to the uncomfortable things that just kind of like gives your life and your soul meaning. Um,
Mhm.
when it comes down to the sacrifices, and how deep and how far those sacrifices go, is real. Like what people don't know about me is that I slept in the storage twice for like 60 days total, and the storage was
Mm.
probably like a 4x4, when I first got out this way. So my
Mm.
legs is like cooped up in
Oh
the
my
air, and my back
god.
is on the ground, but just so I could be in a space where, when the opportunity presents itself, I can continue to grow forward. I know
Mm.
that it wasn't going to be long term or anything like that.
Mm.
Everything is temporary. It might be uncomfortable, might require me to do some extra hard work or something like that. But
Yeah.
it's necessary sometimes to just be able to do that, just so that
Yeah.
you can see the other side of things, and then
Mhm.
and doing that, it gives you more of a appreciation for what you build during that time period, because it's like I feel like the best meals that I've ever made is when I barely had any food in the
Mm.
in the kitchen, and I feel that same way when it comes down to my life, the best things that I created were in a space where I didn't have much, where I had to use what I had, even if it was just my thought process of feeding
Mhm.
myself information, so that when I actually spoke, I had something to say, and
Yeah.
the things actually made sense. Is healthy, it's a sacrifice. It's uncomfortable, but as long as a person knows that the discomfort is temporary, and like you
Yeah.
said, being able to have that end goal in mind, that reason. And I can't tell you how many times I
Mhm.
quit. It's like, fuck this shit, I'm out. You know,
Yeah. You're like, because this feels crazy, right? Yeah.
right, right. But and then like you said, having friends or family members looking at you crazy, trying to figure out why
Yeah.
exactly would you do such a thing, knowing that it's uncomfortable. But when you have a drive, when you have a purpose or something that you really know that has to be birthed out of you, when you really have a vision, it doesn't matter what you experience to get it done. You'll sacrifice it all, because it's doing that and possibly dying is worth a lot more than not living and dying.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's interesting that, our family and friends look at us different. How many people do we know who are waking up miserable, talking about being uncomfortable for, this period of time, and it's temporary, where they have these jobs that they decided is their career for
Right,
life, and
right,
they're choosing to wake up to this existence, spend the majority of their day at this place, being uncomfortable, unhappy for life is what they
right.
signed up for. And we're
Prison.
like, we're about to do it temporary, and
Right,
we're gonna
right,
live our dreams. So
right,
like, who's the one that's more out of sorts? Like, who's the one who's not thinking correctly?
right,
I don't
right.
think it's us. It's not us.
It's definitely not. Awesome. Okay. Let's see. I only got two more questions for you. I'm not gonna hold you too much longer, but this has been great. You've given a lot of great feedback. So, what does your legacy work look like for you?
Mm. That's a great question. Um, I think I feel like my goal right now is to create a space for my community in the outdoors. Where I'm in the Pacific Northwest in Portland, and it is an outdoor hub.
Hmm.
But I want to see an increase of color, an increase of queer and trans bodies out there, and for them to feel confident and safe, and for them to be elite adventurers or just leisurely adventurers, like whatever feels good for them. And I feel like, you know, what I want my legacy to be is being the one to help facilitate that world for my community.
Right, right, right. Oh man, that's it. And I love to hike, so I'm glad that you are
I need to
even.
get you outside.
Exactly. Next time you guys do like a group, then you gotta let me know so I can come out and come camp with you.
Yeah, we'll
Um,
do.
and then what's your definition of wealth?
Um, Happiness.
Happiness.
Mhm.
What does happiness look like to you?
Oof. It's just waking up every day and feeling good or excited about what I'm about to do.
Yeah.
Living in a place where I don't feel any have tos, like have to do this today, have to do that. Where
Mhm.
the day is mine, where it's my life, my day, and I get to choose how I want to spend it. To get out of the cycle of this working 40 hours and maybe shift more towards like live in 40 hours a week. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
I think that's what it looks like. It looks like happiness. It looks like it's full of community, and it looks like movement where I can spend my day in whatever way feels best for me at that time.
awesome. That's amazing. Well, Mercy, like you've given me such a great interview. I've done a lot, and everybody has really been my favorite. But I definitely say that when it comes down to this one, I definitely resonate more because it seems like we had a good bit of the same similarities as far as experiences are
Hmm.
concerned. So I really value coming on and telling your story. And I just want you to know I don't take your time lightly. Well, this has been episode 13 of Wealth Talk TV. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say before
No,
we
thanks
jump
for
out?
having me come on. Let's get outside together.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you guys have a wealthy week. It's Wealth Talk TV, and we're out. I'm gonna hit you up real quick, okay?
Bye. All right.